Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that covers all things marketing. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast gives you the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. Whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand, you've come to the right place. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast starts now.
GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie, and I'm so excited you are joining me today. On today's podcast, we are going to be talking about the year 2020. That's right, as this year comes to the end, not only are we losing 2019, but we are saying goodbye to an entire decade. So what I really want to do in today's podcast is reflect on the last 10 years of marketing and see how we can help you achieve new goals in the next decade. So to start out today's podcast, I want to talk about an article that Forbes published on December 18th, Digital Marketing Predictions for 2020. I really want to talk about what they predict is going to happen and how it will influence you and your company. So their first prediction is that the importance of influencers will increase. I 100% believe in this, and I think it's something that every company should start considering. Putting a face and a brand behind your organization or your company can greatly affect your social media following, your lead generation, and your overall customer appreciation and connection. Because when they feel like they're connecting with someone who's connecting with your brand, they believe that they're, a friend, a part of the family, that they're not just another customer, they're not just another dollar sign. So now, you don't have to go all the way as to hire some teenager off the street to come and take Instagram photos for you every day and update your Instagram story every hour. But what you should do is definitely keep in mind that every brand should have a face and every face should have a connection with your audience. Their second prediction is that peer reviews will be even more important. And I also, again, completely agree with this. But I want to take a look at it not from peer reviews, but your Google, Facebook, and Instagram reviews. I feel like it's incredibly important to always make sure that you are looking at the reviews people leave online for you and making sure that they're honest, making sure that they reflect your company in a good light, but also make sure that even if they don't reflect the best for your company, that you respond to the best of your ability. Don't go on there and start bashing back and forth. That's not good. But what you need to have is a plan of attack for when people attack you. And it should never be a mean attack. It should never be like you're fighting back in any way, but just create a simple statement that allows that customer to know that you have heard what they're talking about and that you are open to a discussion. I'm not going to go through every prediction Forbes made because this podcast is not a review of the Forbes article. However, I do just want to touch on one final one. The number 8th prediction is always be humble and kind. And I fully believe that that's not just something we should be doing in 2020. That is something we should be doing all the time with our marketing. It should never go out of style and it should never be forgotten. People trust other people. And so you need to remember that although you might be successful, although your product might be the best product on the market, stay humble and stay kind and stay true to who you are, because that is what people really want to hear from you. And that's something that people really pick up on and they respect. I'm going to be posting this article on our Twitter, so feel free to go on there, read it for yourself, and then let me know your thoughts on the predictions and how you are going to push your marketing in the direction of those predictions. Or if you think the predictions don't really matter for you and your company and how you are going to do things differently in 2020, we would absolutely love to hear from you. So please feel free to reach out through social media. The next marketing news item I want to talk about is from a company that we all know and love, and especially we all know and trust, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has resurrected the post of Chief Marketing Officer 2 years after eliminating the role. This is super fascinating that Coca-Cola is, they tried something different and then they're like, no, the original way actually worked better. Let's go back and let's try again. And I think that's something that is so funny that it's happening in a marketing role, because I feel like that's what marketing is okay, well, we've been doing this for a long time. Let's change it up. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back to the original way, but with some edits. So to talk more about Coca-Cola, they have released this statement. There's a much greater intersection and integration of how to engage with customers and shoppers. And therefore, bringing together in one group the classical marketing pieces with a customer piece, with a commercial piece, and with the strategy underpinned with all the digital engagement is what's going to allow us more seamlessly to operate in this new environment. So I think what they're really trying to get at here is that the reason they first eliminated the role is because it seemed like it touched too many different roles. But now what they're trying to do is, how can we make this one role really overlook all the others and make sure everything's in line? About 70% of large companies have chief marketing officers at the corporate level, which has actually decreased from 74% since 2009. So what do you think of Coca-Cola bringing this position back from the dead? Are you for a chief marketing officer? A lot of companies now are opting out for them for the exact reason Coca-Cola originally did, is that it feels like there are so many different departments that all relate to marketing that you can't really just have one chief marketing person anymore. Does your company have a chief marketing person, or are you the company that really likes to have everyone work on their own stuff? Let me know, because I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this. Also, in the world of marketing and hiring marketing officers, Yellowbrick Data has followed in Coca-Cola's footsteps and has appointed Jeff Spicer as Chief Marketing Officer to accelerate market growth and expansion. This is super interesting because if you don't know what Yellowbrick Data is, they are the ultimate data warehouse in your data center or on any cloud. That's the slogan off of their website, but they are basically a data storage facility. So by bringing on Jeff Spicer, they're really hoping that it will help grow their marketing. So Jeff said in a tweet, I'm excited to join with the Yellowbrick team to accelerate growth and, most importantly, to drive the success and satisfaction of our customer. Yellowbrick followed with Jeff brings a demonstrated ability to drive responsible, fast-paced growth with strategies aimed at ensuring the success of our customers. So this is very interesting for the exact opposite reason that Coca-Cola is bringing back the chief marketing position. Is that, Yellowbrick is growing, whereas Coca-Cola, sure, is probably always growing a little bit, but not at the same rate or velocity as Yellowbrick Data would be right now, because Coca-Cola has already achieved a prominent level of marketing, right? Like, you can't go into a store without seeing a Coca-Cola product being marketed to you. So Yellowbrick Data versus Coca-Cola both feel as though they need a CMO. So again, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, and if you think a CMO is helpful or not, right? Like, a lot of you listening to this podcast maybe are CMOs, so I'd love to hear more about if you believe your position has growth or if you believe things maybe need to change slightly. So definitely write a review of our podcast or reach out through social media. We're going to go ahead and take our first break of the podcast now, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the highlights from the past decade of marketing. So stay tuned, because you are listening to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jakewish, and I will be right back.
Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you again. Black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
I'm your host, Mackenzie Jakewish, and thank you for joining us today. What we talked about before the break was some of the big hits that have been happening lately in the news. We talked about CMOs and if the position is something that companies should be looking into more, or if the position maybe needs to be retitled and restructured. So again, if you have comments or an idea that you would like to share with me, then please reach out through social media or write a review below. So now that we're back, I want to dive into the past 10 years and take a look at some of the big marketing moments that have happened and how we can maybe use them in the future. Although this won't seem like that long ago, in 2013, the Share a Coke campaign started. And if you guys don't remember what this is, it's actually still happening, so maybe you're just not aware of it. But basically, instead of a normal Coke label, you will see a Share a Coke with Jeremy, Frederick, Henry, Zach, or Share a Coke with your neighbor, your husband, your mother-in-law, whatever it may be. The idea of this was to replace the Coke logo with your name. Now, they kept the same font, they kept the same coloring and all that, so their branding stayed consistent while running this advertising and marketing idea for the past 2 years. I know they did it at least for a year, and I think there might be some bottles still out there. But it made it so interesting because everyone suddenly wanted a bottle of Coke with their name on it, and people were announcing baby names with their Coke on it. People were proposing with Coke bottles, and the whole marketing campaign really ran wild, actually. So over 1,000 names on the Coke bottle. So they didn't just do your simple Bob, Ted, and Janet names. There was names of every variety and every spelling. I know that as a Mackenzie, I was very, very happy to see the MACK bottle instead of just MC. It had 99.8 million impressions on Twitter, 235,000 tweets from 1,100,000 fans using the Share a Coke hashtag, more than 150 million personalized bottles sold, and in 2015, Coca-Cola added nicknames such as Bro to the campaign, and this year has announced a series of holiday destinations such as Ibiza and Hawaii to be included. So let me ask you this. You might not have the budget of Coca-Cola because let's face it, who does? But if you have a product that you're able to market to a specific person, but still on a large scale, or an idea that you want to push forward that would customize the customer experience, then do it, because that's all Coca-Cola did. I know it seems like they did this huge, enormous thing that would have costed millions of dollars, but at the end of the day, all it was connecting with their customers. So make sure with your marketing, you are always pushing to do that. Another big hit over the past 10 years was when Amazon launched Amazon Prime next day delivery. Oh boy, this was not a marketing technique, but it definitely was a game changer in the world of marketing. Think of all the commercials that were released because of it and all the people that maybe didn't even realize they were promoting it. Absolutely were. I know at the time I was living in Canada and I was watching a lot of YouTubers who were like, I don't like leaving my house and I don't have to anymore because Amazon Prime delivers the next day or within 24 hours. So it became this thing that they didn't even need people to promote for them. People were just willing to do it because of how fantastic that product was. So I think what we should take away from what Amazon Prime did with their marketing is that if you have a good product, if you have something people genuinely need, it's going to promote itself. That doesn't mean you shouldn't promote it, but it does mean that your first step should always be being innovative, looking for problems in the market that you work in, and being useful to your customer. Because it doesn't matter if you have the best marketing on the block. It matters if you have the best product and the best marketing. But they both go hand in hand for sure. So just always make sure that you love your product, because if you love your product, your customers will too. So the final example I want to talk about isn't so much of a good marketing tip that you should take away, but more of an interesting thing that happened over the past 10 years. And that is in 2017, United Airlines shares dropped after volunteering David Deo. So I don't know if you guys remember this or if you even saw it at the time, but David Deo was a passenger on a United Airlines flight when they requested that he give up his seat for someone who was waiting for it. And he threw this big fit. They had to forcibly remove him. And United Airlines was seen as like a really big bully for, physically removing someone from their airplane. And the video absolutely went viral. People could not get enough of it. And people were upset. There was people on both sides of the argument. So what makes this incident different and why we're talking about it in a marketing podcast is because a lot of viral videos come and go pretty fast. Charlie bit my finger, the pizza rat, all of those things kind of are a flash in a pan, and they never have real impact on the actual company. But this one did. United Airlines stock fell by 6.3% in the wake of the incident, shedding $1.4 billion of its value. So what this really demonstrates is how quickly things can go wrong for your company, because they obviously did not market that. They obviously did not promote it in any way, but other people did, right? Other people were videotaping it. So I think something that everyone should keep in mind, not just marketers, but although we have a social media account that we get to control, so does everyone else. So if a product is defective, if a marketing campaign goes wrong, it's not just something that can be fixed internally because other people have seen it. I always like to do this. I like to post stuff on social media with the thought of, will I like the post in 5 minutes? Will I like the post in 5 hours? And will I like the post in 5 days or years? And that's how you should maybe take a look at how your marketing is and what your product is. Because if you're trying to sell something really cheap and really fast, people are going to know it. All right, we are going to go ahead and take another break here on the podcast, but stay tuned because when we come back, we are going to be talking about how you can plan for your next year of marketing and how to really make sure you got everything out of the past decade. And I know it seems like maybe it's too late, but it's never too late to reflect. So we're going to dive into all of that when we come back, so stay tuned. You are listening to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm Mackenzie Jakewish, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jakewish, and before we took our last break, we discussed all of the big moments that happened over the past 10 years in marketing. Obviously, I did not get an opportunity to touch on every single one, although I wish I could have. We really just talked about 3 big ones. We talked about Coca-Cola changing their logo to a name of a person so that you could share a Coke with a Harry, a Ryan, a Jill. And we talked about United Airlines forcibly removing a passenger and how their stocks dropped because of a marketing technique they did not intend on using. And we talked about Amazon Prime next day delivery and how that product marketed itself because of how innovative and useful it was. So now that we're back, I want to talk about how you can reflect on the past 10 years and use that reflection in your marketing for the next decade. And I know that everyone always tells you to plan ahead in marketing, and you probably are, but I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I am not telling you to plan for the next 10 years. What I'm saying is that we're going to take the information from the past 10 years and use it to make a plan for this next year. And then after that, we can build and build and build, and we can always be reaching and doing more with our marketing. So the first thing we need to do to really reflect on the past 10 years is gather data. I absolutely love and hate data when it comes to marketing. I used to hate data. I thought it was the most boring part of the job. But then I learned that although it is the most boring part of the job, it's the only part that really gives you the answers you're looking for. In marketing, it can sometimes feel like you're throwing darts at a dartboard and you don't really know where they're going to land. Well, what data can do is show you where they've landed before so that you can try to throw your darts in a more productive and precise way. So if you don't know where or how to find your data, I can recommend a few sites. Definitely, if you're looking to spend a little bit of money, Sprout Social is an amazing organization that allows you to get graphs, numbers, tables, and outlines of your social media and website data. So definitely check them out if you're looking to spend a little bit of money, and they will give you everything you need for all of your sites. You can link it up to your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter, and your website. So we will link them in our description, because if you're thinking about getting serious about your data consumption, definitely check out Sprout Social. If you're not looking to spend money, don't worry. There are still lots and lots of other data organizations that you can lean on to take a look at your social media and website data. One of them is direct from the source. Go to Google Analytics to check out how many times people have clicked on your website, what their bounce rate is, what their click-through rate is, if they're checking out other articles on your site, or if they're exploring it, and the amount of time people spent on your website. Google Analytics is completely free, easy to use, and I find it very helpful when managing multiple websites. The next website will not come as a shock to anyone, but definitely check out Facebook Ads Manager and Instagram Insights. That's just a simple little button that's already on your Facebook app or on your Facebook homepage that will allow you to see very superficial data of what's happening with your social media pages. But all data is good data, so definitely check it out. It will give you how many times people commented on a post, how many times people shared a post, and it will tell you what your reaction rate is and how quickly you respond to messages as a company, because that is something that everyone cares about and shows up on your Facebook website page. Now that you have gathered all the data, I want you to create 2 different spreadsheets on your computer or on your ThinkPad or on an actual notebook if you're old-fashioned like I am. And I want you to write a list of all the good things you did over the past 10 years and all the things that went wrong. Now, both lists are equally important, and I won't try to sway you in either direction. However, the one that you should look at a little more critically is the column of all the things that went wrong. Because they didn't just go wrong because the wind was blowing a different direction that day. They went wrong because of an error that either happened on your team, in the market, or with the product you produced. So I want you to ask yourself the hard questions of, how could this have been better? How could my team or myself have worked harder or more effectively to get a better result? And I want you to create a list of all the things that went wrong with that one project, and how, if you were assigned that project again, what would you do differently? I want you to take a look at the list of things that went great, and I want you to look at it critically as well. Because again, it didn't succeed just because you're a lucky person. It didn't succeed just because you wished on a star and the next day you got 100 leads from one ad. No, chances are is that your team worked more effectively, more efficiently, or you had a brand new idea that you really, really thought through. Maybe you used your past data to do this idea, or maybe honestly, it was just a good idea. But I want you to really take a look at what went right. And again, maybe things went wrong in the good ideas too. I don't know. But take a look at the shining moments and write a list of what you would do better and what you would not change because it clearly just works for your company. So now that you have those 2 lists on your notebook or in an Excel spreadsheet, I want you to push them together and make a to-do list for yourself for the next year. If there are things that absolutely do not work for your company that you learned from the good or the bad list, then write it down. We will no longer run Facebook ads. maybe Facebook ads don't work for your company and you just need to know that. Or if things went really, really well in both columns, but maybe it just wasn't as successful in another, then you should write down, we will only do Facebook ads because clearly our audience responds. So what you're creating here is a life raft for yourself to hold on to for the next year. You will be able to stick to a path and know where you're going and why you are going that direction. So now that you have a roadmap for the next year, a very, very broad one that we used mostly from collecting data, let's talk about some ideas that now that you have your roadmap for the next year, and again, it's a very loose roadmap. I know things will change because maybe one day you will wake up and your customers will suddenly hate Facebook ads and will want to only respond to you through Instagram ads. The beauty of marketing and also the worst thing about marketing is that it is always changing and always growing, especially over the past 10 years. I mean, think about the examples that we looked at in this podcast. So your roadmap should be like a treasure map. You should follow it until it doesn't make sense anymore, and then it's up to you to go find the treasure yourself. That's it for today's episode. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope it really started allowing you to think of what your marketing is going to be for the next year, or maybe even the next decade, how you're planning on changing and growing your company and your marketing. I really, really enjoyed this episode, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the news articles we talked about, the commercials and marketing techniques we talked about, as well as the planning that we did at the end. So please feel free to write a review down below or visit us through social media because I'm always on there. I'm always responding to your guys' comments and I can't get enough. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Marketing Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquith, and I'll see you guys next week.
You've been listening to the GSMC Marketing News Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to any podcast app and you'll find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news, you'll find it all on the GSMC Podcast Network. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.